So earlier this year, we finally got what the Flesh and Blood community had been craving for years, an out-of-the-box and fully playable classic constructed product in the form of the Armory deck product line. But the Armory decks take it even one step beyond simply being an entry-level product. They also serve as a mega expansion slot of sorts, supporting the product sales with an injection of new and exclusive cards that support downtrodden heroes and sideline playstyles. And in just a few weeks, our fourth Armory deck is set to drop, -IO, with an as-yet unknown hero due in December of this year. So today, let's chat Armory decks. Which heroes are we likely to see? Which should we see? And, that's right, which ones do we hope to see? A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast, and thank you so much for tuning in here on your Flesh and Blood Monday for a fun one. I want to talk Armory decks, not just the ones we have, not just -IO coming, but I want to look well into the future. We do know the product schedule or the release schedule roughly through 2025. Who do we think we'll see? Who should we see? And that's right, more importantly, let me know in the comments below, what Armory hero do you want to see the most? Let me know below who you're hoping for, who you think we'll get, or maybe even who you don't want to see. All right, folks, so we know that we've had 3 so far. So Kayo dropped. Kayo was the very first one we saw, hit with a bang with Savage Sash. We then got Boltyn, much needed support for that hero. We've seen some pretty cool things happening, recent results with Boltyn. And then we got the Azalea and Riptide 2 deck, as I'm calling it, because of the aim counter support, right? So did Azalea herself necessarily need support? No, but that aim counter playstyle, that got a lot of support in that, which also there's a lot of like really neat tricks that could potentially be very good for Riptide. Then of course we have -IO coming in just about 2 and change weeks. We expect to see that drop. That should be very exciting to see what the rest of that kit has in it. We're getting close. We've seen a couple, but not all of them. Be fun to see what the rest is in there and what that ends up doing to the meta. Okay. Now we do have one more floating. Because of Brian Gottlieb's update at the last Pro Tour, we did get a forecast through the end of the year, which also includes an Armory deck due out between November and December. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say that we are due an unknown hero in December. Okay, so that is what we're looking at. Of course, we're looking at one in March and then July. But the one that's very interesting and one I want to talk about next is the one that's due in December.
Not this year, but 2025. Some Armory decks featuring brand new heroes, not
That's cool.
like the Kayo and Boltyn, as not returning heroes, but brand new heroes or new iterations of heroes. So that's something that you'll start to see next year.
So that's right. The clip we just enjoyed from the Living Legend podcast, shout out to them, was their James White interview. And one of the parts of that was future heroes, unique heroes in the Armory deck product. Now, James had said that we expect to see that in 2025. However, I want to put into context the timeline around this. Okay, so if you actually go back to the product roadmap 2024 that was down at Pro Tour Los Angeles that we had, you'll notice there was no Armory deck originally planned for the December timeframe. Okay, instead there was one that was tentatively slated for early 2025. Now, of course, going back to the roadmap that Brian presented at the next Pro Tour, we saw that there is now one in late 2024 and nothing in early 2025. So my conjecture there is that what James was speaking of 2025 could actually apply to the one that's coming later this year, because remember that was not originally planned for that, at least in the Wayback Machine. Okay. So to that, let's move on to my number one projection of the new hero that we will see is Terra. Okay, so Terra we saw as part of the First Strike decks earlier as mid-July, okay, and then officially released right before skirmish season. It was late July, early August, but then officially released during skirmish season. We have young Terra, okay, just Terra. Now what's interesting about that is that he's just Terra. There's no comma, there's no nothing, right? Which is generally indicative, actually not generally, all of the time is indicative of that being paired with an adult hero. Okay, but there is no Terra. We did not see it in Rosetta, as many people were hoping. So I think that my long-standing theory of seeing Terra in an Armory deck, I do believe that one to be true, right? I suspect, I have a strong suspicion that it will be the December one. Even if it's not, I do think that Terra is likely a slam dunk to be the hero that we see in the future. Now, will they maybe wait until the All Guardian set comes out for Terra? They absolutely could. Maybe he'll be in both. Completely fair. But I think that a great option for Armory deck would be Terra. We could get some of that, blue earth block 3 support, maybe. But we'll see, right? Typically those support slots fill Majestics. So, do you want to be using Majestics to block 3? Run Roughshod, I guess. But usually you're tackling with that either way. So I do think Terra, whatever his name will be, is a very likely decision for an Armory deck. Now let's move on to Ira. So we have the announcement coming about the 5-year, that is already out, about the 5-year celebration. So many copies of Ira will be distributed across the globe. But at 16, currently it's being 16 per LGS. That's not a ton for every community, right? And you then, think about the fact that you have to go to that 5th celebration. What if you're out of town? What if you can't make it? You have other life conflicts, something like that. Sure, there's a secondary market, but it is very potential that folks who want to play Ira aren't able to get her through the 5th anniversary celebration at your LGS. Okay, you have to acknowledge it could happen. So many folks were like, oh, you know what? Ira would be a great one to come as an Armory deck. Now, it was confirmed in interview with Brian Gottlieb. It was, I think, on TCG Ted's. Shout out to Ted. Apologies if that's wrong, but I know you had one with him, so shout out to you regardless. But he had mentioned that Ira is not currently planned for an Armory deck release. So I do think that, and that's currently planned, I do think that that's a very realistic place to put Ira in the future. But again, I just want to speak to, we do know that it's not currently planned within their schedule, which then would, if we go back to the release schedule that Brian had brought up at last Pro Tour, then it makes sense that at Pro Tour Amsterdam, it makes sense that at least through summer of next year, we would not expect to see Ira. However, that doesn't mean that there's not a real major potential there for her to be in the future, especially if there's a large outcry for folks who don't have that hero, especially if she's very good and she is constrained. And you all get it. Okay, so now what I want to do is move into kind of my hopes and dreams of what I would like to see. So next up is Aurora. Now, Aurora, I don't think that this is a highly likely one to see, primarily because they have the first strike pipeline. And there's arguments for and against it to that you could buy the first strike and then buy the CC deck. The fact that she's in first strike and then supported in Rosetta, I don't know that we'll see. Right, just being realistic from like a tactic standpoint, I don't know that we'll see an Aurora one. That said, I would really like to see her get one. I do feel, she's still doing very well, and I'll actually link my video. I talked about it last Friday, but it feels like her kit is just slightly incomplete, and that's, the Armory deck has really done a great job of filling a lot of those needed slots. Now, to be fair, I think that what's missing for her would actually need to be like a common or rare arc, so it could be a red, yellow, blue. And typically up to date, right, what we've seen to date is that it's only Majestic type stuff, meaning one-ofs. Okay. That said, options there to expand her kit as well. But again, people are having a lot of success with her, so it's definitely not needed right now, but something I wouldn't mind seeing, maybe something down the line in the future. Okay. Now, probably the biggest one on my wish list is Fi. Fi feels like he needs a lot of help right now. If we actually go back to early July, there was actually some speculation out there. There was a Phoenix, someone had executed a buyout on Phoenix Flame. And obviously not Phoenix, the EA Phoenix form, and cold foil Phoenix, Phoenix Flame cold foil. Sorry for the stutters, but anyway, they had executed a buyout on those Fi cards, so there was a lot of suspicion. It was like, oh, maybe the next Armory deck coming is Fi. Maybe somebody had some inside information. Now, obviously, that ended up not panning out. But to my point, Fi needs some help, right? Especially you put him up against all the other ninjas. When when Katsu, Katsu got a lot of really good stuff coming out of Outsiders, and I do realize, Phi won Worlds after that, I get it. But Katsu was really just kind of like the better ninja in most cases than Phi, and then obviously part the misfail happened, right? So I do think that Phi stands to get some support, but I don't think he needs much support. He probably only needs like one or two things to really just kind of bounce back in. And that's why I think an Armory deck with, maybe one or two super expansion slot kind of injection type thing. And again, you could really feed into that. That's why the Phoenix Flame buyout actually really hinted at that. Again, to be clear, it had nothing to do with it, right? But when that's why a lot of people made that leap, and it was a very logical leap to make, because that's a kind of under-supported play style, right? That Phoenix Form card really never went anywhere. It was very hard to use. So it kind of made sense that, maybe there's something. Makes sense. It made sense to me. So again, Phi is probably my number one of what I'd like to see more than anything. Now, the next one, Olympia. Okay, Olympia obviously needs a lot of help. Now, other people are saying on the screen, well, what about Betsy? She's in the same boat. You're 100% correct. But this is my wish list, and I want Olympia more than I want Betsy. Also, when I'm doing this wish list and projections thing, I'm also looking at what classes are there. And there's obviously no data to make this with the 4 that we've seen, but I'm making the assumption that they will try and be peanut buttering around the classes, right? So I wouldn't expect to see like 3 Ninja ones in a row, right? 3 Guardian ones in a row. So under the assumption that we're going to see Terra, which I very much believe we're going to see, I think we would be less likely to get Betsy, and thus we would be likely to get Olympia. However, someone's like, well, they already did Boltyn, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I just want to see Olympia. So this would be a great spot to introduce Olympia's weapon. It would be a great way to do it. Boy, that would be there'd be a run on product for that one now, wouldn't there? Right? But give Olympia a special thing. Give him some snoo specs, right? Just build out his kit. This would be the perfect product with which to do it. And he would, again, I don't think he'd need much. I don't think you'd want to give him much. Maybe a new way to wager, a new attack wager or attack reaction wager. But his weapon, kids, his weapon. Right. So he is also very high on my list. Not as high as Phi, but he's definitely up there, because we know he's going to be getting, he is light. We don't know anything, but he's very likely to be getting expansion set support in the near future. And by that, I mean like the next 2 to 3 sets. He's probably going to get some. Armory deck, perfect way to just head that off of the pass, fix him up right where he needs to be. Okay. So again, I throw it back to you. What other heroes would you like to see? Yes, I know people are screaming Betsy, completely fair. So let's really just think about it in context. We've had a Brute, we've had a Warrior, we've had a Ranger, and now we've had a Mechanologist. So the Runeblade's on the table, looking at Aurora. Guardian is on the table, looking at Terra, right? Illusionist one. Yeah, people like their Illusionist. You could definitely do some Ceci cards in there. Plus, that would sell like crazy, because Illusionists have to have their decks tricked out, and there's only one of each foil. So like all the Illusionists are now running the store and buying 3 of them. Actually, that would be a negative situation, because then they wouldn't be on the shelves. But definitely a very real possibility to be out there. So let me know what other classes, what other heroes you'd like to see. Just having some fun with this one. Realistically, I'll throw up one more time the product roadmap as we know it. And again, remember, things are always subject to change, right? As we saw between Pro Tour Los Angeles and Pro Tour Amsterdam. A little bit of flux there, no big deal. We're actually getting it earlier, so even better. But let me know your thoughts, where you think we're going to get them, when you think we're going to get them, and what you think. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, folks, and go Commando.